There he is.
Hey, awesome.
How's it going?
Excellent, man. Thanks for having me on. Sorry about the last minute mix up. I appreciate you.
No, don't worry. Hey, look, I honestly I'm just glad that we can connect and share our perspectives. Like whether it's through Zoom or through these IG lives, as long as we're normalizing the discussion. And that's really what it's all about here. Just trying to shift the perspective of this reality that we've all been indoctrinated with. So,
Love,
uh, with
love it.
that, thank you for joining me, brother, and being here and us discussing all of this and connecting and sharing your energy. I'm super grateful, and I'm sure the people watching are as well.
Yeah, grateful to be here.
All right, so I'm gonna do a quick intro so that ones people watching can kind of get to know you a little bit more. So this is Dr. Ben Benulis. You actually live really close to me. You live here in Phoenix, right?
Yep.
So Dr. Ben is the author of Create Health, Reverse Autoimmune Disease Without Drugs or Their Side Effects. Struggling with his own autoimmune disease years ago and getting no help from the medical system, he now teaches and coaches people how to heal from these, quote, incurable diseases, end quote, with diet and lifestyle. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ben Benulis, thank you, sir. I remember seeing you at a what do you call it? Not a protest. Was it a protest?
Yeah.
Was that? I guess you call it a protest. It was in front of Honor Health, right?
Yeah. And
So
you were five and you looked familiar and I was like, hey, can I say something? I didn't remember, I didn't put two and two together who you were. I was just like, I want to talk.
yeah, no, there was like I don't know, maybe 100 people there on the right on that corner in front of Honor Health. But yeah, I remember seeing you there and going like, "Oh, this dude's got it. He's here. He's in the front lines. He's wanting to get this discussion normalized." So I appreciate everything that you've done so far and what you're doing on Instagram. I mean, you're making a difference on there, man. Not many people are willing to step into their truth and into what they believe and actually speak out about it.
Yeah, man. That was kind of a surprise to me. It was like, all the chips got put on the table and a lot of people just kind of folded. And I was like, this is for all the marbles. Like, this is like the last stand. Like, if you don't, like, how am I one of the few people speaking up? It didn't make sense to me.
Well, I mean, I've noticed that those that were willing to step into that power are now, there's been a shift. It's like the people are becoming aware now and they're going, who has been talking about this for so long? And now they're starting to come back. Like I'm noticing for myself, people that strayed away at first because they're like, I don't know how to approach Otto anymore. I don't know. He's talking about all this crazy stuff. Where now they're like, oh, wait, hey, that thing you talked about 2 years ago, it's kind of happening. What's going on? So it's nice to see that people are now at least being more open to this information or being open to, letting go of their programming and what they've always believed in.
Yeah, it was definitely lonely in the beginning, man. It was like,
It's
uh,
tough.
and there were a lot of fence sitters. Like I think there were a lot of people who are like, yeah, I know this is something fishy, but it's like I don't want to get, I don't want to stick my neck out and get my head chopped off, so I'll just keep quiet and that was really frustrating. But I think like people like you and I speaking up, it kind of empowered those fence sitters to get off the freaking fence. And it gave them like, okay, I won't be the only one speaking up. Like, it's like it has to start somewhere with somebody. And then, we've gained a sort of a momentum. And now it's almost like there's a bandwagon, which, like, that's good,
hmm So I wanted to get to know you. That's what I love about these interviews and connecting on IG Lives or through Zoom to get to know the person that I'm talking to and their life and their journey to this point. So tell me a little bit about your journey and try to start around the time that you had your red pill moment, the moment that kind of like shook you out of the matrix.
Um, let's see. I think the red pill moment for me was healing on my own with diet and lifestyle. because I had been going to doctors with this autoimmune condition and like not getting any better, and basically trying to figure it out on my own. And when I, finally I had to research and like self-experiment and all these things. And this was back in 2010, 2011, like there's not like the information out there that there is now. And so I was kind of having to figure it out on my own. And I remember like, when I finally got things dialed with the diet and something that worked, within like 6 weeks, I saw like everything I was dealing with. I had chronic fatigue, really bad digestive issues, really bad chronic pain, really bad skin issues, brain fog. Like it all just kind of like disappeared, like melted away in about 6 weeks. Like the only thing that I did was eat differently. And that was like, okay, like these doctors could never figure it out. They were throwing different medications at me, telling me my blood work looks normal. We don't really know what's going on. Maybe it's all in your head, blah, 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 blah. And I got really sick of that. And I was just like, just trying to stay alive, like just trying to figure something else out for myself, because I thought I was the only one who was suffering with this kind of stuff. And so when I saw the body heal, I was like, man, like how many doctors did I go to and none of them could help me? And like, this is all I had to just drink stuff like this. And that was the answer all along. Like, damn. So that was a big red pill moment for me. Cause it was like, whoa, the world is not as it seems. Like that, like things operate under a different set of laws than, you've sort of been led to believe. So that was a major red pill moment for me. Yeah.
When was that? When was it? What the year was it?
That was like 2011.
Okay, so about a decade ago. Okay. So tell me that journey. Like, so you started healing yourself. Like, you realized that you were being lied to. So what were you already a doctor by that time, or was that the beginning of the journey to become a doctor?
I was working as an engineer in the microchip industry.
Oh, very different. Wow.
Yeah, so I had a math and science background, and so when I sort of figured out how to heal myself, and it wasn't so much that I felt like I had been lied to, I just felt like a bunch of people were very ignorant, especially medical doctors. Like they didn't know, they'd never been taught it, and like they had it seemed like they knew they're venerated as knowing everything, but they actually know a very narrow scope of information, and like a great depth of knowledge, and like a very narrow field. Even though they pretend to have a breadth, they don't. And so it was like, wow, these guys like didn't know, And I thought, man, like I got a math and science background. Like I was always good at chemistry and physics, like biology maybe not so much, but like the hard sciences. And so I thought, man, with like knowing what I know of like healing myself and just what I've like self-taught over the last year or two, just like trying to figure this out, like I know way more than all the people who couldn't help me, And so that was when I made the decision to go back to school, because I was like, I was like getting really disenchanted with just working in the tech industry and kind of like the thing. I mean, now I'm like, damn, I got out of there. We were creating a lot of like the precursors to 5G technology. With like smart meters and stuff like that. And at the time, we were like really thought we were doing a good thing. And now it's like I look back on it, I was like, wow, that was really harmful technology we created. But it was finding out that there was a knowledge gap, and there was just like a lot of people out there suffering with these things that medicine couldn't help. And generally, the public perception is, oh, this is very rare and it doesn't happen very much. And I thought I was 1 in a million. And then I come to find out and meet more people who are doing the same thing. I'm not. So it was like I almost felt like a sense of obligation or duty to be like, someone's got to step up and help people. And so that was kind of like, that was like getting red pilled, and also realizing like if it's to be, it's up to me kind of moment. So that was when just like sold the house, quit the job, moved across the country to go back to school, like fresh start, like just sort of tons of passion. So it was a very exciting time.
I like that saying. If it's to be, it's up to me. I feel like that's like a theme right now for most in what's happening these last 2 years, because we've given our power away so much that now the theme that I've seen is taking that power back. And so it literally is up to us if we want to get out of this fuckery that we've all gotten into.
Man, I mean, that's why I was stepping up in the beginning. So I was like, well, somebody's gonna like speak out and say this is bullshit, right? Like, and I'm like looking at all my mentors and my peers and like all these people I used to look up to that are just like bowing down and going along with the agenda. I'm like, am I like, what is going on? How can they not see through the obvious ruse? You know? So it was like, well, gotta speak up because this is gonna get bad. You know, like there's no time to mess around. And so it was the same thing. It was like, if it's to be, it's up to me. And obviously I had been through the whole, you know, ruse before of like, we're going to get you well, you know, kind of thing. We don't know what's wrong. We're totally ignorant and just do all these barbaric practices. But we're in the position of authority, you know, it's like, it's the exact same thing. And it was like, yo, fool me once, yo. And so, but I knew that there was a lot of people still under that spell of like, oh, the medical community and the pharmaceutical industry are like working for the greater good and they know everything and they are the best option to go to. No. And I got passionate about it because I knew what they did to me. And now like working in this industry long enough, it's like I see what they do to all these other people. I mean, I'm having to clean up their mess left, right, and center. And so it was just like, man, like I got to speak up. And I'm usually not the kind of person who does that. But it's like you paint me into a corner, like, you know, just like a feral dog. Like I'm going to fight back, you know?
I love it. You know, actually, I wanted to ask you a question. There's a little side topic here, but I noticed that you did start speaking up and out. And kind of, I want to say that you are really stepping into that power in you, like that, the voice, the strength to speak. Primarily, I say this because I actually I don't know if you noticed that we were there. Ashley and I both went to go watch you do a stand-up. So you did stand-up comedy here in
for one of my shows, but okay, yeah.
It was like way in the beginning. It was like last year, maybe a year and a half ago now. It was good. It was really good because I saw the comedy was good, but I saw that you were like, man, you were trying something new. It was definitely something new for you. I felt like at least newer in the grand scheme of things. But I love that. I love it. So I want to ask, what was that moment for you that, like, what happened that you were like, I definitely need to speak out now. I definitely need to be this voice that is being the voice of the people.
That's a good question. I think it was, well, just to back it up, I have a history of doing activism before that.
Okay.
So I've been an ethical vegan for about 11 years. And I went through a period in my life where I was very involved in speaking out for animal rights. Very involved in activism. I was with a group called Direct Action Everywhere. Very involved for a while. And then I just kind of got burnt out on it. I stepped aside. But I knew a lot of the tactics, strategies for doing activism and speaking out. And I also knew a lot of the tactics and the strategies that the people who are trying to suppress dissent use. And so when I think they obviously use a lot of those tactics, right? Mm-hmm. And so when they said social distancing and no large gatherings, I was like, oh, motherfucker, I'm on your shit, okay? That's an obvious, we don't want people like talking to each other and gathering in groups and figuring out that this is bullshit, right? We want to isolate everybody. And it's kind of like when we used to protest and they used to say, oh, well, you can't have more than like 10 people come into Trader Joe's to protest. There's a law against that. It's like free speech, bitches. Right to assemble. Like it was like
right to assemble, I was going to say.
Constitution. Okay. And so as soon as they're trying to like come out, oh, the rule is you can't gather in large groups. Like, okay, you know, I see through the game. Okay, this is an obvious attempt to disempower people. So that was like declaration of war as far as I'm concerned. It was like as soon as you go after like the First Amendment, the right to gather. I mean, it was like, come on. Okay,
and then you add the metaphysical into it. You know, connecting, being close, because you know there's a distance when you get really close with people to another person. There's an emotion. There's like a vibration that happens in that moment, and it's about the aura at least from what I've learned, it expands out naturally 3 to 4 feet, 4 feet or so, maybe 5 feet. I think it can expand indefinitely, but most people have it within a certain parameter. But it's exactly like within those 6 feet.
Yeah.
And so just trying to stop us from connecting to each other as humans. I mean, that was bananas to me.
Yeah, that was a big one. And the other thing was that there was like predetermined like sort of sayings, like
Right.
we gotta flatten the curve, we gotta stop the spread, we gotta social distance, and then everybody's repeating these things like the concepts that have just been around since time immemorial. And now we're like, oh, I knew about the social distancing. And you have medical doctors saying, well, you got social distance, like med school. Really, we're not just making this up. Like, and then we find out, oh yeah, they're making it up because some 16-year-old kid wrote a science paper about it back in 1997. Like,
Whoa.
come on. So it was an obvious ruse to me, but I knew that the media has a lot of power over people, and so it was like, yeah, I had to speak up for sure.
Now,
we had a gathering at Soul Center in Mesa, and we listed on Eventbrite, and we actually got an email from the counterterrorism unit at Mesa Police Department asking us what would be going on at this meeting.
oh wow,
Like,
that's
red flag, right? Like,
was this after or before?
what?
Sorry, say that again.
About the Mesa Police?
Yeah, the last part. No, because I was going to say, was this before or after the government came out saying that if you were to use certain words or if you were to like say certain things on social media, it would be considered terrorism or like act of terrorism?
I think
there was a
censorship happened, but they were definitely cracking down on like no meetings, no gatherings, stay home, flatten the curve.
wow.
Now,
I didn't know that was happening back then.
But yeah, I mean, I remember like censorship and trying to go live with certain people, and it was like, are we really hitting communist China level here, where like I can't talk about certain things? Because that kind of happened pretty fast. We went from completely free speech to this has been fact checked. It's been fact checked. Can't say that. Disinformation.
If I had a dime for every fact check, I wouldn't be teaching crypto. So from your perspective, okay, and I've obviously heard this perspective from several different people that are medical doctors. What would you say is the biggest issue, the biggest, how do I say this, the biggest hiccup or the biggest congestion or manipulation of the medical industry that put us in the situation we're currently in?
That's a good question. Oh man, it's kind of several things. I mean, I think the main thing, the main problem is that the pharmaceutical industry. Man, there's a lot of possible ways you could.
So it's your perspective. So whatever comes up first, because there's a lot of layers to it. I know that. So I just want to know, what do you think feels in your body that is the thing, man? It's like, man, if this one thing happened, we would have been different.
Honestly, I think it was in the late 90s when they let pharmaceutical companies advertise on television. Mm-hmm. It's like a pretty innocuous, thing. Like, oh, well, let's let them do direct-to-consumer ads. Like before, it used to be they could only advertise to doctors and advertise in medical journals, right? So you couldn't turn on the TV and see an ad for whatever pharmaceutical, right? You couldn't drive down the highway and see a billboard for whatever pharmaceutical. It seems benign. It's like, okay, well, what's the big deal? Let them advertise on television. But it completely changed things because it was such a big industry that now they had all this collective bargaining power that was like, they became the primary advertisers in all of these things, including television. So then they literally began to call the shots because it was like, well, we pay most of your ad revenue, ABC, NBC, Fox News. So you better not run a bad story about us. You better not show anything we do in a bad light. You better shill for us and tell people about these diseases that they better be scared about to buy more products, right? And so it allowed them to essentially a coup d'etat on the media and basically own the media. So I think that was probably like the linchpin for them to like essentially ascend to power.
Oof, That's literally, that was so well said, because they ascended, they created the path to ascend to that power. And yeah, TV, man, I mean, that's a great perspective. Sorry, you have something else?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I'm not sure how old you are. I'm 40, okay?
35.
And, what?
35.
Okay, so you may not remember quite as well as me, but up until the late 90s, early 2000s, you couldn't advertise for prescription drugs on television. So all of a sudden, around, like late high school, early college for me, these ads start appearing on TV. Are you depressed? Do you feel feelings of loneliness and blueness? Well, don't worry. Talk to your doctor about Prozac. It can help you feel happier. And then they cut to another scene. Side effects may include nausea, vomiting, dismemberment, puking out your ears.
And like you're watching a visual of people like playing volleyball.
And it's like, when it first happened, it's like, whoa, what the fuck? Is that real? Like, the medicine does, like, what? Like, why did they just casually breeze through all that? Like, our hackles went up and we were like, whoa, that's really weird, right? But then they keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and now it's been 20 plus years of it, and people are like, oh yeah, pharmaceutical ad, yeah, oh, they have to warn you about all the crazy shit, that's super rare, don't worry about it, just take the pills, We become completely desensitized to it.
It's like we flip to the opposite side of like, oh, well, they're supposed to do that. They're like, they have to do that to protect themselves. And it's like, yeah. Wait, what?
When I'm harmed by these things, it's like pharmaceutical companies, like, okay, they're serial corporate criminals, but no one ever goes to jail. They just pay fines, so it must be good guys.
Right. It must be okay because nobody's going to jail. Right. That's amazing, because talk about normalizing something. And it's funny because I don't remember that shift. What I do remember, though, is seeing SNL make fun of those commercials. What I really remember. And I remember, because as soon as you were saying that, I was like remembering the SNL skits, and I remember thinking, well, if it's on SNL, it must be a normal thing in this reality. Like, it must be normal, and they're just poking holes on it. But then now I'm like, oh, it's all connected. It's probably all the same people trying to make a joke around it, so that if you start to point at it, they'll go, oh, well, you're just a conspiracy theory. You're just thinking too hard on it. Yeah,
it's just it's a lighthearted thing. It's just, we can laugh about it. People having crazy side effects and suicidal thoughts. It's like, it's whatever.
So it seems to me that, based on what you're sharing there, that essentially what happened is that they were able to put their drugs in front of the eyes of many people and give them the options and give them the opportunity to buy it as like a product, even not as a medicine, but as a product. So what would you say is now causing all of these disease? Like, would you say that it's the abuse of these pills and these drugs that's causing the majority of the autoimmune disease that we're seeing now? Or is it something more? Is it bigger than that? Is it deeper than that?
Sure, good question. I think, just to answer the first part of your question, yeah, it got them direct-to-consumer advertising. But the more important thing was that it got them power over the media outlets, because they literally had so much money they could buy influence, right? So it wasn't so much that people were getting drug advertisements. It was what people weren't hearing about the drug pharmaceutical companies, because they could just sort of iron out the narrative and create a narrative and paint them always as the good guys. And so that was the more powerful shift. Like, yeah, direct-to-consumer advertising, it's pretty fucked up, and like we're seeing all these drug ads, and it does normalize it to some degree, but it's really more the buying power and the ability to control the media narrative that they gain, more so than just the ability to run ads.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So to answer your question, I don't think it's necessarily, well, maybe it's a little bit of a long story, but not necessarily the pharmaceutical drugs that are causing it. I think it's the toxicity in the environment, in the food, in the water supply, in the air supply, and it's those things that are injected into kids in childhood, which of course those same companies make. And so like that whole thing, the 72 doses of those drugs, becomes the front end that later in adulthood they develop autoimmune conditions, right? So now they're double dipping, right? Because they're creating the customers on the front end, with their injection program, and then they're selling them drugs in the back end to treat the chronic diseases that they developed from them. And if you look at the diseases basically the pharmaceutical solution for autoimmunity is they go, okay, your immune system's attacking your body, right? If it's rheumatoid arthritis, it's attacking your joints. If it's Hashimoto's, it's attacking your thyroid. If it's ulcerative colitis, it's attacking your guts, whatever. Well, what we need to do is we need to suppress your immune system, okay? Because your immune system's bad, and it's a bad little boy, and it's acting up, and it's hurting you, so we're going to turn it off. Well, here's the thing. Kind of need your immune system, right? Kind of need it, you know? There's a virus going around, I guess, maybe I heard about it, I don't know, maybe. And so, but that's the solution. And then what ends up is people having side effects, right? Because it's like you suppress the immune system and maybe you feel a little bit better. You don't cure the disease, but you feel a little bit better. But now your immune system's suppressed, and now you're open to all these other conditions, you're getting sick with all this other stuff. And when your immune system's not functioning well for a long time, there's another thing that happens. It starts with a C. It's the second leading cause of death. You become vulnerable to that. And so now it's like, now you create even more customers, right? Mm-hmm. Now you get more sick with other stuff. Well, we got a drug for that. So pretty damn good business model, you know? Yeah, it's not something that I particularly enjoy being on that merry-go-round. And so I see it as my life's mission to help people get out of that freaking pinball machine, because it's a dead end.
Oh, I've said this often, that when you prioritize profits and power, you will always, it's not even a question, you will always neglect health and safety. And that's essentially what happened these last few years. You have all of these adjustments happening to this reality, lockdowns, everything. And essentially the solutions have become worse than the problem, worse than the situation that we thought we were in, essentially. So, it's nutty. It's nutty the situation we're in now, and trying to get out of it, and trying to create a different narrative, or normalize a different conversation that's not this doom and gloom conversation. So I guess now my next question is, how would you say, now that everything you've experienced so far, the way that the narrative is kind of shifting now a little bit to this new variant, and what you've experienced in these last few years, how do you see humanity shifting or snapping out of this situation? Do you see us snapping out of it? Do you see us, making a shift towards something different?
I do, actually. I know that in the beginning you talked about you're a little bit skeptical. I'm pretty optimistic, honestly. And so, I think that, there's a point where I wasn't, for sure. But just in my own, seeing that my ideas are catching on, like stuff that I've been talking about for a decade, now people are like, oh, Dr. Ben's ideas are like really good. It's like, well, I'm glad you finally figured it out. You've only been shouting for 10 years. Like this whole situation, like, gave me a platform, I guess. I think before COVID started, I had like 3,000 IG followers. Now I got like 25 or something. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's been nice. So I feel like my ideas are catching on, and just what I know about social change and how it works, is that there's something called a tipping point, right? Mm-hmm. And when you have 3.5% of the population actively involved, not just like believing in it, but like actively involved in like some social change, whether that's civil rights, gay rights, whatever, that like once they hit that percentage, like that's when the scales tip, okay, and then it becomes a flood, because there's a lot of people still on the fence. A lot of people still sit on the fence. A lot of people live in families where everyone believes the brainwashing, and they don't want to step out, right? And so it's like we're getting closer and closer to that tipping point of 3.5% actively involved in change. And so I think, and I was just hearing something about on the World Economic Forum where Stefan Bancel, the Moderna guy, was saying, like, we got all these doses we can't sell because no one freaking wants them,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I saw Bill Gates. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
30 million doses or something like that they got a shit can because they're going to go bad.
That's amazing. I saw Bill Gates talking about, he was commenting on the tracking, on like proving that you got the you know what, and he was saying like India was the only one that did. India and China were the only ones that did a good job. The U.S. was the worst. Like nobody was checking anything basically, and so like it's almost as if they're now normalizing the discussion of like, what are we gonna do now, guys? We tried our best. What do we do now? Maybe there is other plans, obviously, but it seems like they're noticing that there's a shift.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a long battle, man. Don't get me wrong, but you know, I think we can win. I mean, I think it's obviously, you know, I always felt like growing up that like, wow, all these other generations had like, you know, there was like the like Vietnam War kind of thing in the 60s, and then there was World War II in the generation before that, and World War One, the Civil, like all these generations had these like kind of great conflicts of their time, and I was like, we never had that. We never got to be involved in that. And it's like, whoa, man, be careful what you wish for. Oh, it's like, so this is the great like struggle of our time. I'm in it to win it. If it's going to be another 20 years, like I'm not going anywhere. I'm on the front line. You know, and that's a challenge. Come and take me out, motherfuckers. Come at me, bro. Because I'm not up. And so, you know, I see that, like, you know, I see it happening subtly. They're never going to come on the news and be like, guys, that whole COVID thing, that whole thing was a scam, and actually this is no. Like the system's not going to change. I've talked about this in my book. I talk about this a lot. Like the existing system, the media, the pharmaceutical system, the medical system, they're not going to change. What's going to happen is that people are just going to keep jumping ship, and then you know, the CEO of Moderna is going to be standing around, his thumb up his ass, going, "How am I going to get rid of 30 million doses?" You know, and then go bankrupt, and then it should be like, "Oh, guess nobody wanted to buy the stuff." You know, it's not going to be like this public kind of like revolution. It won't be televised, right? It'll just kind of slowly trickle, and these existing oppressive systems will just kind of obsolesce because no one wants to play ball anymore, and people will create their own system. What that's going to look like, I don't know, but it ain't going to be what we got.
I love this. This is something that I've been saying over and over and over. That if you know, and this sort of, and I know this might trigger people that are listening, but even the protesting, like I love the enthusiasm and the power and doing that. But that's still validating that system. You're still giving that system power.
Yeah.
So what you said is crucial. Is if we can all start to realize the system we're in and focus our energy on just creating a new one, just say, let's create a new system that just makes the old one obsolete. I agree. I think all of a sudden people would just start to notice, why am I in this one? Why don't I just use this other one that's decentralized and you know, transparent and, you know, all of these good things. And this is a good pivot point right here, a good shift towards the conversation of crypto. So that's where we're at, in my opinion. We're at a point right now, a pivotal point, where we have the structures, we have the ability to shift out of those systems. Right now, we're just having a massive chasm of education, of like understanding how it works and why it works. So, quick question about crypto for you. Are you aware of it? Do you know any of it? Do you have any questions?
I'm aware of it. You know, obviously, you know, it's like you can't throw a rock without hitting someone who wants to talk about it, right?
Nowadays, yeah. Oh, when I got into space, no, yeah, it was the opposite.
I don't own any of it, but it's something that like I've been meaning to get into, but I've just been so involved with everything that's going on and like writing my book, fighting the bad guys, and it's just sort of like it's kind of deprioritized. But I see what you're saying exactly, and it goes along with what I was saying. It's like we got to create a new system, like this central government and central bank controlling our money supply is like it's enslavement. It absolutely, like by definition. I mean, it's blatant. It's in your face. And so it's like we, you know, and I remember like back after like 9/11 happened, people were talking about, like, you know, Ron Paul in 2008 was talking about, the Federal Reserve and how it was bad. And it's like, well, we're hosed. That's what we got. What are we going to do? And now it's like, oh, we have a way to get out of it. Of course, there is skepticism on my part of like, well, okay, someone else is going to control it, right? So they can make up rules. And it's like they could say, oh, it's decentralized, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. But like, I don't know. There's still a trust issue for me, personally.
Sure.
And you hear about all these coins, like, kind of changing their rules up or doing things. I mean, I'm not pretty ignorant of the whole thing. I don't know much, but it's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to figure out the social Darwinism going to happen, and a system's going to eventually kind of emerge that works. What's it going to be? I don't know. But I think overall, it's a great idea to get away from centralized banks and centralized power. I see that this whole crypto thing could fall into that again.
I'm glad you said that.
What?
I'm glad you said that it's going to fall into it again, because it's actually what's been happening for this last, I'd say 5 or 6 years. There's been a centralization of crypto. This decentralized concept is now being centralized in other ways, in like different ways. But yeah, I mean, you look at the internet. When the internet started back in the 70s, it started extremely decentralized, and slowly over 30, 40 years became centralized. You now have a very small amount of websites and places that you actually go to that make up the entirety of the internet. And so when crypto came out, totally decentralized. I mean, everything about the ecosystem or the industry was decentralized. And then slowly, especially in these last five years or so, we've had a centralization, not only of tokens, like the coins themselves, but the projects creating structures that are just perpetuating the same old system. So to kind of like give an answer to your thought there, or to your comments, blockchain, right? Which that's really what crypto is about. It's about the concept of going from central to decentral, right? From centralized to decentralized, from central governing to self-governing. And so that shift it creates a tool. It's this new tool. It's this new way of facilitating transactions. So with this new tool, when you release a new tool, and this, by the way, people have asked me, it's like, oh, was it created by them, by the evil ones, by the old system? Even if Bitcoin, because that was the first one, even if Bitcoin was made by them, I think they understood, and this is just my perspective, but I think they understood that the old system was dying. And if you look at the current system, if you look at how it's structured with a centralized reserve that's inflationary, it's been done probably 5 or 6 times in the past since the 1400s. And every time, after about between 90 to 110 years, it's failed. It literally does this. Because that centralized inflationary system, it's unsustainable. It gets to a point where it pops. And so that's happening right now with this system. And so even if they created this new system, which I believe they did, I actually do, and they release it out, it's a tool. It's a tool because of the structure that we have, because of the internet cables. So this is a concept that most people don't know. The internet, the hardware that actually makes all of this work, that connects us to each other, more than 95% of it are actual hard cables. So there's actual cables underneath the ocean going from New York to Europe, from Europe to Spain, from Spain to Africa, and then back to South America. And it's an actual mycelium network. And the reason for this is, in nature, we look at mushrooms, and they create a mycelium network. Actually, I think the largest living organism in the world is it's fungi. It's like a forest. It's one organism, but it all connects underneath. But essentially, you can take a machete and cut through that root system. It doesn't matter. It'll just divert the flow of energy into different paths. So the same thing happened with the internet. In the 70s, they started that process of laying down the lines, and then slowly, through greed, through shifting it went from the universities to government, from government to corporate. And when the corporate got a hold of it, they started to, hey, this is all about profit. And then it was just a game to be the best and have the most uptime. So fast forward, after all of that was created, and now, we've now have all these lines created. Well, all we needed now really was a operating system. Because right now, how do we experience the internet? We go on Google, we search, and then we click on whatever pops up. Or we go to the websites that we know, right? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all these major platforms. That makes, so all of these websites that we've normalized make up 5% of the actual internet. The other 95%, that's the dark web. That's the place that they've created fear for us to stay away from. But it's actually where the sovereignty lies. That's actually where decentralization's at. And so instead of me, like right now, we're using Instagram. For me to talk to you, I go to Instagram, you go to Instagram, and then we use their servers to talk to each other. So we have to use their operating system, their code, to be able to communicate. With crypto, I have my phone, you have your phone, and then we have an operating system that we download directly to the device, and then it uses this. So you have the same operating system on your phone as I do. It's a crypto-based operating system. And then it uses those highways to connect to each other without going through a central server. So that's the 95% of the internet that we have access to. I've been even calling the gatekeepers, like Cox, Comcast, AT&T. I've been calling them gatekeepers for a while, but they're actually the wardens of the prison. They're actually keeping us in this little area of the internet that we're all experiencing all together, when in reality the sovereignty is out here. So that's what crypto is giving us. It's giving us the ability to create systems outside of their little centralized areas. And so they will come into the space and start to use blockchain for evil. They're going to start coding and making their projects, but it's going to be all centralized. And so it's going to be on us to discern and know the difference and go, which ones are the central ones, which ones are the sovereign ones. And then on top of that, just make our own systems. Because as soon as my opinion, as soon as we do that on local levels, because that's the other issue too, is like trying to launch things at global levels, you're always going to attract globalists because that's what they are. That's their bread and butter, is global level launches. So I think that the path forward is going to be, in this transition, is going to be to create these little systems that are local. Whether it's geographically local, where you have like a community that you can connect to locally, or it's an ideology, like a local ideology, something that we all agree on, so it can be global. But make it small and then grow from there, but not at these global levels. So
I like it.
So that's what I have. That's it's all possible on that side, but it's also all possible on this side.
Well, I think it's interesting that you mention all of that, because it's like, I do have this concern that like it's just a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? And it's just the same guys just pulling the stunt. But there is a way to do it, in a way that is truly decentralized and keeps like the so-called globalists out of it. And it's like now I'm seeing this trend where it's like these, and globalist is such a nebulous term, right? But like where they try to insert themselves into these things that like seem good, and then they sort of perverse them. What's the word? Sort of like corrupt them and turn them into a tool to seize power. Mm-hmm. Like they did this with medicine. Now they're doing it with climate change. It's like, well, we're going to create all these restrictions on you so we can control your life because you don't want to harm the planet. And so it's like part of their game. Oh, well, we'll track every bit on blockchain. We're using crypto and blah. It'll be good because it's crypto. Y'all like crypto, right? So we do have to be discerning, like you said. That's like the main thing. It's like you can't. There's never going to be like a truly 100%, 1,000% all the time trustworthy source of information. Everybody's going to have to continue to vet things, use common sense, and like think for themselves. Like if like it's like people have this like desire for like the central authority, especially of information, to always trust, and then they don't. Oh, I don't have to critically think because I believe, right? It's like so.
And that right there is the key. The key, in my opinion, that's how I teach. The key, in my opinion, is mindset. If you stay with the same mindset of giving away your power, right, pushing your power upwards towards the top of the pyramid, or towards the savior outside of your body, then yes, you're going to fail in the space. You're going to fall into those glamorized traps, the traps that they created to pull people in that have normalized that. So yes, I agree. The theme, in my opinion, of coming into the space, really with these last few years in general, is taking back your power. Crypto is just that first layer. It's the financial layer, taking back power of our money.
Yeah.
Money is energy that is represented by our self-worth. And so if we leave that self-worth in their hands, they're going to manipulate the shit out of it. And so we have to start taking it back and manipulating it ourselves, alchemizing it ourselves.
I agree. Yeah.
That's what it is, man. I love this. This discussion is probably one of the most ongoing discussions that I have with people when I talk about crypto, is like this letting go of giving away the power and taking back that power into your body, like actual embodiment of power, of that worth. Because money is been glamorized to be the thing that is worthy. You know, we externalize this worth when in reality it's just a representation of who we are.
Totally.
But so one last question I want to ask before we end this. If you were to be standing in front, this is more of like a last piece, perspective. So if you were to be standing in front of 1 million people or 21 people, and you had one or few sentences to say that you want to leave them with on this earth. So you're leaving, right? You're going. What's that thing that you would say? Not to put you on the spot.
What?
Not to put you on the spot.
No. It's a great question. I'm like, oh, I gotta make it count. Off the top of my head, it's just, yeah, you're more powerful than you know. You're smarter than you think. Take action. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't let anybody tell you what to believe.
Boom. Believe what you believe.
Yeah.
I love that. Those are great words. Thank you, Dr. Ben. If you guys want to catch Dr. Ben and more of what he's doing, make sure you follow him on Instagram. Here is Dr.Benjamin Benulis, Benulis, or check out his book. His website is createhealthbook.com. I love the name of the book, by the way, Create Health, because that's like literally those two words together in my body feels like, oh, I can create the health that I want for myself. It can be destructive, it can be positive, it can be whatever I want, but I'm creating it.
Totally, man. I feel like we have very similar messages in different spaces, and like I've done a bunch of interviews since the book came out this week, and I just feel like this one was like the most empowering and like really like just I just enjoyed it the most. So thank you very much, man.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you. And actually, I'm gonna get that book because I've been reading more recently, so I want to start reading my friends' books because I'm getting so many friends that have books now, and I'm like, oh, I gotta make sure that I read their books.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for doing this.
All right, brother. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll post this right after this. All right.
Awesome.
Always remember, gamify your abundance. There it is. All right, peace.